Hey, did you know most people believe that the road to peace is paved with success? Work harder, earn more, climb higher, and eventually the storms of insecurity will fade. We are told that success is the cure for emptiness, the proof of our worth. But what if this is fundamentally misguided? What if the very thing you're chasing is what's quietly destroying your inner equilibrium? There is a strange silence that follows every victory, a collapse not of failure but of meaning itself. When your external life flourishes but your inner world dries out, the mind begins to rebel. It whispers, "Is this all there is?" That whisper becomes restlessness, exhaustion, self-sabotage. In this video, we'll explore the hidden psychology behind this rebellion. Why the ego builds towers of achievement only to feel imprisoned at the top, and how the collapse of meaning can become the beginning of freedom. This is not a story about losing success. It's about rediscovering the soul you abandoned while chasing it. To understand why your mind rebels against success, we have to look beyond ambition and into the architecture of the ego. The ego, in Jung's view, is the ruling tyrant of our inner kingdom. It builds walls, gathers trophies, and crowns itself with identity, the job title, the body image, the approval of others. Success in this sense becomes its fortress. But every fortress, no matter how grand, is also a prison. Inside it, the deeper parts of you, the shadow, the soul, the unacknowledged feelings are exiled. You become a manager of appearances, a curator of control. And as you tighten your grip on perfection, your psyche begins to suffocate. This suffocation is what we call burnout, though the term barely captures the existential weight of it. It's not just exhaustion, it's the collapse of inner purpose. You wake up, perform your rituals of discipline, and feel nothing. You achieve and feel nothing. You love and feel disconnected. The mind rebels because it was never designed to be ruled by the ego alone. Have you ever noticed how success, once achieved, brings not peace, but a subtle emptiness? You might stand in your apartment surrounded by everything you thought you wanted, yet feel like a stranger inside your own story. That's the psyche trying to reclaim what was sacrificed: spontaneity, depth, mystery. In Jungian psychology, this revolt is a form of self-correction. The unconscious, like an ignored friend, begins to sabotage the ego's agenda. You procrastinate, make mistakes, lose passion. It's not weakness, it's intelligence. The deeper self is pulling the brakes on a life that's accelerating toward emptiness. Think of it as an internal rebellion staged by your soul. You can hear it in the quiet moments between achievements. The voice that asks, "Why does this victory feel hollow?" It's the same voice that haunts high achievers, artists, executives, even spiritual teachers. People who have mastered the outer game but lost touch with the inner conversation. This rebellion doesn't come with explosions. It comes with silence. A silence that grows louder with every unexamined success. Jung once said, when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. The mind that refuses to listen to its own unrest will eventually experience collapse, career crises, broken relationships, depression. But beneath that chaos lies a deeper intelligence. The psyche is trying to restore wholeness. It is not punishing you. It is summoning you. The collapse is not an error in the system. It is the system's way of rebooting you toward authenticity. To the ego, this feels like death. To the soul, it feels like resurrection. And that's the paradox. At the heart of this silent collapse, it destroys the illusion of control so that something real can finally breathe. The tragedy of modern success is that it teaches us how to win, but never how to be. We are trained to perform, to compete, to optimize, but not to feel, to reflect, or to rest in stillness. The cost of this imbalance is enormous. When the ego becomes inflated with its own narrative, the human being behind the mask begins to fracture. You can see it everywhere: executives who cannot sleep without pills, artists who burn out after reaching fame, parents who provide everything for their children, but feel hollow inside. Outwardly, these lives look accomplished. Inwardly, they resemble ghost towns. When the pursuit of achievement replaces the pursuit of meaning, the psyche revolts. The first symptom is subtle, a restlessness that no new project or relationship can cure. Then comes emotional numbness, followed by self-sabotage. The success you once celebrated now feels like a trap. You work harder, but joy declines. You make more money, but peace evaporates. It's not laziness or depression. In the conventional sense, it's spiritual exhaustion. The moment when your soul refuses to be used as fuel for an image that no longer represents you. Jung called this the inflation of the ego, when the individual mistakes the mask for the self. Nietzsche warned that he who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. The monster here is the persona, the false self that devours the real one in the name of progress. When we identify with this persona too deeply, authenticity dies, replaced by performance. And performance, no matter how convincing, cannot sustain the human spirit. Imagine two versions of yourself: the healthy achiever and the inflated performer. The healthy achiever works from alignment driven by curiosity and growth. The inflated performer works from fear of irrelevance, fear of losing validation. One creates, the other consumes. One expands the soul, the other drains it. The difference between them is not visible from the outside, but you feel it every morning when you wake up. Are you being called by something deeper, or are you chasing approval again? The more you ignore this question, the more violent the inner rebellion becomes. Anxiety, burnout, chronic fatigue, meaninglessness, all these are messages, not malfunctions. They are the psyche's language of protest. And the longer you silence them with distractions, the louder they get. This is not theory. This is survival. A person who keeps betraying their inner truth will eventually collapse, not because life is cruel, but because the human spirit cannot live indefinitely in falsehood. The same fire that once drove you toward greatness will turn against you if it's not guided by authenticity. What you built to protect yourself, your discipline, your ambition, your image becomes your cage. Success without integration is not success. It's sophisticated self-destruction. The question is no longer, how do I achieve more? But how do I return to myself? Because every unhealed achiever eventually meets the same fate the day they realize they've reached the summit, but left their soul at the base. The first step toward liberation is not doing more, but finally stopping. The endless climb, the reflex to fix, to prove, to perform. Jung described the path of individuation as the movement from identification with the persona to integration of the self. It begins with recognition, admitting that what you've built may not reflect who you truly are. That moment of honesty is the quiet revolution. Recognition allows the unconscious to surface without judgment. You begin to see how much of your ambition was born not from purpose, but from fear. Fear of being unseen, unloved, or ordinary. Observation is the second stage. Here you witness the inner machinery at work. You notice the tension in your chest when you rest, the guilt that follows relaxation. the inner critic that whispers you're wasting time. Observation transforms unconscious compulsion into conscious awareness. The third stage, integration, is the most difficult. It requires courage to reconcile the opposites within you: success and vulnerability, confidence and doubt, light and shadow. It's not about rejecting ambition, but purifying it. When you integrate, you no longer chase worth through outcomes. You express worth through presence. Success becomes an expression of wholeness, not a substitute for it. Integration is slow and often painful. You'll feel lost because the false self was a map, even if it led you in circles. At least it was familiar. Now you're walking without directions, guided only by intuition. But this uncertainty is sacred. It's the space where authenticity is born. The collapse that once terrified you becomes your teacher. You begin to see the beauty in stillness, the wisdom in limits, the grace in imperfection. Gradually, the mind stops rebelling because it no longer needs to defend an illusion. You realize you were never broken, only divided. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That is the reward of this journey: authentic authority, silent power, inner freedom. The world may still measure you by titles and numbers, but inside, you live by meaning. You act not to impress, but to express. You work not to escape yourself, but to meet yourself more deeply. And when you fail, you no longer collapse, you listen. Because failure, like success, is now part of the same conversation between your ego and your soul. That is the transformation hidden within the silent collapse. What once felt like an ending is the beginning of a new kind of strength, one that doesn't need applause to exist. If you've ever felt that strange emptiness after success, know this: it's not the end of your story. It's the invitation to finally live it. So reflect on your own rebellion. When did your mind start to resist the life you thought you wanted? Share your story in the comments, not as confession, but as connection. Because in the silent collapse of one life's illusion, another life quietly begins. Subscribe if you wish to keep walking this road of depth, freedom, and meaning. The journey inward is the only one that never betrays you. And now, as the echoes of this story settle, ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly alive? Not because someone approved of you, but because something deep within you whispered, yes. When did you stop hearing that whisper? Was it when you started succeeding? Or when you began confusing motion for meaning? We live in an age where achievement screams louder than silence, where rest feels like guilt, and where identity is built from other people's applause. But who are you when the applause fades? When the screens go dark and there's no one left to impress what remains? Do you still recognize the child who once dreamed not of being perfect, but of being whole? Can you remember what your soul felt like before you began performing it? These questions are not meant to wound you, but to awaken you. Because beneath every burnout, every collapse, every quiet panic attack in the middle of the night, there is a truth trying to surface: that you are not the mask you wear, not the productivity you produce, not the image you protect. You are the witness behind it all. And maybe your exhaustion isn't a sign of weakness, but a sign that your deeper self is begging to come home. So look at your success not as a trophy, but as a mirror. What does it show you, pride or emptiness? How much of your life has been built around being seen, and how little around actually seeing? We chase purpose as if it's somewhere out there, but what if purpose is not something to find, but something to feel? in the smallest act of honesty, in the courage to rest, in the decision to stop pretending. The silent collapse is not an end, it's a return. So tonight, before you scroll, before you run, before you distract yourself again, pause and ask quietly, if I stopped striving, would I still know who I am? If everything I built disappeared tomorrow, what part of me would still remain standing? That answer, however fragile, however small, is where your real life begins. Don't fear the silence. It's the sound of truth, remembering your name.